I'm Paul Edwards, author of the Mourners Woods books, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Tonight I'm watching Slender Man from 2018. Slender Man is a movie based on a popular internet monster. It's actually not even the first movie based on the Slender Man of internet fame. There was actually a movie 2 years before this called Slender in 2016. And Slender, in terms of the story, was actually a more original and creative film. I'm not saying it was a better film. It was actually a much worse film than Slender Man. But at least Slender had an original story idea to it. It was about two wannabe documentary filmmakers who were latching on to the idea of the Slender Man phenomenon and trying to fake a Slender Man manifestation with, of course, horrifying results. Slender Man 2018, the film we're talking about tonight, is a much more by-the-numbers horror film. Basically, if I told you, you have an hour, write me a story for the outline of, a Slender Man movie, this is what you would come up with, because it's just the first things that would come to your mind. It's a very mechanical, organized plot, almost as if it were written by AI. That's really how the plot feels here, as if it were written by AI, because yes, they are doing all the things that you would expect them to do in a Slender Man movie, but it feels contrived and mechanical. Of course, we're dealing with a group of teenagers who have dared each other to conjure up the Slender Man, the internet monster, which supposedly will appear in the real world and is known for taking people away and spiriting them off so they're never seen again. And of course, soon after they try to summon the Slender Man, one of them goes missing, and it's all downhill from there as the others begin to experience unnatural phenomena and have their own encounters where they're being stalked by this otherworldly being. Basically, the way Slender Man is presented in this is as a cross between Freddy Krueger and Bloody Mary, who appears if you say her name, or for younger viewers, Candyman, who appears when you say his name. Basically, if you took Freddy Krueger and he could only appear if you went out of your way to conjure him, that would be the Slender Man from this movie. The Slender Man looks the way that the internet monster looks, and they did have the copyright owner's permission to recreate Slender Man, unlike the character in Slender, which is why the older movie wasn't called Slender Man. This film looks, I'm not saying it's comparable, but it looks like The Ring. The cinematography of this movie is very similar to The Ring. I'm not saying it's anywhere near as good as The Ring. It's not at all, not even close. But it has the same feel to it, the same vibe to it that The Ring had. Basically, one other thing I'll point out is that it's a little bit dark. And I don't mean dark thematically, I mean visually dark. Sometimes it's hard to tell what is happening on screen because the image is so bleak. Sort of like The Batman, where sometimes it was so dark on screen, it was hard to make out what was happening. And that was a problem that increased as Slender Man went on. So by the final act, you had to squint at the screen to see what was actually happening. The real problem with this is not the fact that it was mechanically done, that the script was predictable. I've said this before in other videos. I don't think cliches by themselves are always bad. Tropes become cliches because they work. What you have to do is present a trope in a new and innovative way. So the fact that something has been done before in the horror genre anyway, doesn't mean that it's got to be bad or that you can't do it. You can do it. And you can still do it effectively. But there's a deeper problem with this film. And it sounds mean, but every young person that is acting in this film is overacting. And I'm not trying to be mean to them. And I'm not even blaming them. I'm sure each of these young people has dramatic talent. It's really easy to blame the actors on screen for what you perceive as overacting. But the fact of the matter is, there's a director on set for a reason. And there are editors of films for a reason. Actors are giving what the director wants, or at least what they think the director wants. And it's the director's responsibility to tell them when to tone it down or walk it back or try again. So a lot of criticisms that I've seen of this film online focus on the bad acting. In fact, one of the supporting actresses in this film was nominated for the Golden Raspberry for Worst Actress for this film. She didn't win it, though. But I think it's just too easy to pick on these young people. I don't think it's necessarily their fault that they were overacting, and their overacting made it into the finished product. The real fault lies in the powers that be, who should have edited that stuff out and gone with more sedate, realistic presentations of how these characters would be acting in this scenario. One thing that we learn as writers, but this also works in film and TV too, is that if you really want to show someone's emotion convincingly, try to show them hiding that emotion. For instance, if you want to show a character who's furious, don't show the character screaming his head off. Instead, show the character trying to look calm and, shaking and trying to, hold back the speech that they actually want to say. If you want to show a character who's devastated, they're so sad, they're inconsolably sad, the thing to do is to not have them boo-hooing and crying their eyes out. The thing to do is to show them trying to maintain their composure and trying to interact in a normal, everyday way, when you can see every now and then little glimpses of the fact that they're completely falling apart inside. That's the way to impress upon your audience the emotional state of a character. So instead of having these young people screaming their heads off and blubbering, crying every 2 seconds, the way that it should have been done, I think, was to have them trying to act like everything was normal. There's a particular moment I want to point out in the original The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, where Rebecca De Mornay's character she's the villain, and she's infiltrated this family as a nurse, a family that she actually is out to destroy. And there's a moment where somebody lays hands on her in a way that she doesn't like. And just for a moment, you can see her true nature, where she bares her teeth and is getting ready to claw this guy's eyes out. And then you see her catch herself, because she's reminding herself, I'm here to play the long game. And she puts on a calm, poised demeanor. It's a great moment. And that's the way that you show a character's emotional state, I think, by trying to show them concealing it. This also works for drunks. You'll notice this now that I'm saying it, okay? Anytime that somebody on TV or in a movie is supposed to be drunk, it looks so fake when they're, slurring their words and wobbling around. The way to convincingly show that someone is drunk is to show them trying to act sober. The way that, if they got pulled over on the way home, the way they would be acting with a police officer. Sitting up straight in the car, trying to speak clearly, yes, sir, no, sir. You want to have them trying to look sober. That's how you show convincingly that someone is drunk. So, in Slender Man 2018, the mistake they made was not really in making a Slender Man movie. We could tell that was going to happen no matter what. And it wasn't even in the story structure. The story structure here was pretty conventional, but I don't think that was a mistake. The fact that it was predictable, I don't think by itself was a mistake. It's the way that we have the acting presented to us that makes it ridiculous to watch. It's like watching one of these overwrought teen soap opera shows. And there are some legitimate scares in the film. I'm not going to say there aren't. There's a few jump scares that are good in here. Hollywood has gotten really good at doing jump scares. Even bad horror movies now can contain good jump scares. Hollywood's got that down to a science. But is this a good movie? No. Can I recommend this movie? No, not really. No. I'm not saying it's terrible. It's better than Slender, the earlier movie, but it's bad. And, you know, there's better movies that you could be watching. There's better things you could be doing with your time. However, it is interesting that there's a movie based on the Slender Man character, because there's a parallel to one of my books. Because America gasped at the Slender Man case, where two adolescent girls lured a friend of theirs out into the wilderness to sacrifice her to this internet monster that they've discovered, Slender Man. And so for my first published novel, I thought, what if events inspired by that real-life tragedy had taken a turn in a wildly different direction? In my first novel, Mourners Woods, Dinah Pojok is a shy, intellectual teenage girl who endures daily bullying at the hands of the mean kids in school. Strangely, the mean kids invite Dinah to come party with them on Halloween night out in Mourners Woods. Mourners Woods has been off limits ever since another teenager disappeared out here last Halloween. This invitation is a trap. The mean kids plan to sacrifice Dinah to Ai Apaec the Decapitator, an internet monster that they've recently discovered online. They lure Dinah out into the wilderness, isolate her, and when they're preparing to sacrifice her, she momentarily escapes and flees from the mean kids and is now running for her life through this remote wilderness on Halloween night. But who has set the real trap? Which teenager is really the hunter? Is it possible that Dinah has had plans of her own all along to isolate these bullies in the wilderness on Halloween night? And if Ai Apaec the Decapitator is real, does he have plans of his own? Who will survive Halloween night in Mourners Woods? Mourners Woods, my first published novel and the flagship novel of the Mourners Woods book series, is available for sale on Amazon. I'll drop a link in the description for this video. Thanks for letting me talk to you some about Slender Man 2018 and indirectly Slender 2016. I'll see you in Mourners Woods.